The roar of engines echoed through the dusty back road of a quiet town when a little girl, no older than 7, stumbled into the middle of the street, her tiny hands waving desperately, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked face. Her voice cracked as she screamed, "Please! They're beating my mama!" The bike screeched to a halt, a line of massive Harley-Davidsons, their chrome glinting under the afternoon sun. The men who dismounted were not the kind you'd expect a crying child to run to: leather vests, tattoos, heavy boots, and eyes that carried stories no one dared to ask about. But in that moment, every one of them froze. The leader, a broad man known as Brick, swung his leg off his bike, knelt down, and said in a low voice, "Show us where." Without another word, the little girl grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the trembling woods beyond the gravel road. None of them knew that what waited ahead would not just test their strength, but awaken something they'd buried long ago, the forgotten part of them that still believed in doing what's right. If you believe kindness can come from the most unexpected hearts, and that even the toughest souls can carry the softest compassion, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Your support helps us spread real stories that remind the world humanity still lives, even in places we least expect. They followed the child through the trees, their heavy boots crunching over leaves and twigs, until they reached a small, broken-down trailer near the edge of a clearing. The sound came before the sight: muffled crying, the sharp crack of a slap, and a man's drunken voice yelling words too cruel to repeat. The little girl froze behind Brick, trembling, clutching his vest. He looked back at her once, saw the bruise beneath her eye, and something inside him snapped. He pushed open the rusted door so hard it slammed against the wall. Inside, a woman, bruised, thin, barely standing, tried to shield herself as a man towered over her with a belt in his hand. The second the biker's shadow crossed the doorway, the man turned, startled, his expression twisting between fear and arrogance. "Who the hell are you?" he barked. But before another word could leave his mouth, Brick's fist connected with his jaw, sending him crashing to the floor. The other bikers poured in behind him, surrounding the terrified abuser. One of them, a tall man called Red, picked up the little girl's torn teddy bear from the floor, its button eye missing, and placed it gently in her arms. The scene felt like a storm breaking after years of silence, loud, raw, unstoppable. The woman, named Grace, collapsed against the wall, gasping for air, her hands shaking as she whispered, "Please don't hurt him, he'll kill me if he comes back." Her voice cracked, not from fear of the bikers, but from years of being silenced. Brick knelt beside her, his voice surprisingly soft for a man covered in scars and steel. "He won't touch you again," he said. And he meant it. The bikers didn't just throw the man out that day, they took him straight to the sheriff's office, dragging him by the collar like a piece of trash, while the rest stayed behind to tend to Grace and her daughter, Lily. That small trailer became a place of quiet tears and slow healing over the next few days. The bikers, once seen as outlaws and troublemakers, showed up every evening with groceries, tools, and warmth. They fixed the door that wouldn't close, repaired the broken window, and even built a tiny swing from an old tire so Lily could laugh again. Brick often sat on the porch afterward, smoking silently, watching the sunset while Grace washed dishes through the cracked window. No one said it aloud, but everyone felt it: something had changed in that lonely little clearing. The town soon began to whisper. People who once crossed the street to avoid the Hells Angels now stopped and stared when they rode through. Some nodded. Some smiled. Others still judged. But the bikers didn't care. They knew what they had done, and for once, it felt like more than just another day on the road. Brick carried a secret of his own. Years ago, he had lost his own daughter in an accident while he was in prison for a bar fight gone wrong. Seeing Lily, small and scared but still brave enough to run toward danger for her mother, brought back everything he'd buried. He began spending more time around the trailer, fixing things that didn't even need fixing, making excuses to stay. Grace noticed. So did Lily, who one evening ran up to him, holding out a lopsided drawing. a big man with a beard holding a little girl's hand under a rainbow. "That's you and me," she said, smiling shyly. Brick didn't speak for a long time. Then he simply nodded, wiping his eyes before pretending to cough. But the peace didn't last. A week later, Grace's ex, the man they'd turned in, was released on bail. The sheriff, an old friend of the biker crew, called to warn them. The bikers gathered fast, engines rumbling outside Grace's home before the man even reached the dirt road. He came drunk again, shouting threats, but this time, he didn't find a defenseless woman waiting. He found a wall of leather and steel. "You want her," Brick said, stepping forward, "you'll have to go through all of us." The man froze. There were 8 of them, silent, deadly, their eyes cold as midnight. Something in him broke then. He turned, cursing, stumbling back into his truck. The roar of engines followed him as they escorted his car all the way to the county line. He never came back. And when Grace realized she could finally sleep without fear, she broke down crying, not from weakness, but from the weight lifting off her chest after years of suffocating under it. From then on, the bikers became her unexpected family. They built her a new home from scrap wood and stubborn pride, painting it white because Lily said it felt like peace. Every weekend, the angels came by, not to fight, not to drink, but to sit around the fire pit with Grace and Lily, sharing food, laughter, and stories. Brick found himself smiling again, something he hadn't done in years. Grace began working at a small diner in town, and every morning, a line of bikes would thunder past just to make sure she got there safe. People who once feared the Hells Angels now waved at them. Some even brought food and toys for Lily. Kindness, it turned out, had started a ripple that no one saw coming. The angels didn't talk about what they did. They didn't need to. But word spread, the outlaws who saved a mother and her child, and soon, others started to look at them differently. Maybe not as heroes, but as men capable of something more than rebellion, redemption. Months later, on a warm Sunday evening, Brick found Lily sitting by her swing, holding that same teddy bear, now stitched up and clean. She looked up at him and said, "Mama says we're not scared anymore." Brick smiled, his heart swelling with something close to pride. Grace came out onto the porch, her hair tied back, her eyes softer than they'd ever been. "You gave us our lives back," she said quietly. He shook his head. "No," he answered, "you just needed someone to remind you that you deserve it." That night, as the sun sank behind the trees, the rumble of motorcycles filled the air once more, not as a warning, but as a promise. They weren't just riders anymore, they were guardians of a story that proved even in a world full of darkness, light can come from the most unexpected places. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that real strength is protecting, not hurting, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to Ripple of Kindness to help us keep telling stories that prove compassion still exists, even in the roughest corners